We speak. Our words. We listen.
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 Hello everyone, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 5th of October 2025, and this is where we discuss the Facebook posts that have been shared on the Autistic Radio Facebook page. And the first post for today is from Autistic Inclusive Meets USA. Inclusive Meets is a non-profit organisation created by autistic people to enable autistic individuals and their families to get out into the community and socialise in an accepting environment in the USA. And what they've shared is the following. If you host or participate in a group that talks about autism and or autistic people, it's ableist and discriminatory to exclude autistics from joining and participating in the conversations.
It's short, it's sweet, but there's no framework here, is there? I can imagine situations where different groups, like parents, need to get together to discuss their lived experience of being a family member. It's not all about us. I have to say that, in general, I would say that, yes, autistic people have to be included in things. But there's reasons why people want to discuss their own experiences. And that could be with autism as part of the subject matter. So when they say nothing about us without us, surely there are some times where people need to get together and share their own experiences. Is it ableist? Not sure. Maybe that's a bit throwing petrol on the fire on social media.
I suppose that's true if it's a closed group, but maybe this comment was made after some experience where an autistic individual or more than one was invited to one of these groups and then somehow it didn't work out.
It's that sort of being inclusive, but is there a need to be inclusive? And I don't mean to say so-called as a patronising and insulting way. It's like some things need to have a sort of closed group. And many autistic groups and organisations do that as well. It's like autistic people only. This is our space. You can't come in for safe purposes, for what they're about. So I do get the gist of it, but it seems rather limited. But maybe it's the start of a conversation and not the conclusion. But I did find it very interesting.
I think I'm just sick of the word ableism being thrown out at any possibility. It's almost as though somebody has that word ready, cocked, loaded to accuse people of, and it's not helpful.
The post itself is 5 years old, but it was shared today. So I would imagine that the feeling amongst many people is the same. But you are right that the word ableist, it's like a lot of words get thrown around, good and bad. It's like a word that's just been discovered or a word that comes in handy to weaponise to suit some people's agendas. So it can be used in a way which isn't helpful because it just seems limited in what people are trying to say when using that particular word. Because ableism is a big deal and it has been discussed at length how ableism is and how it affects autistic people and other people. So, yeah, I get your point there, Jules.
Maybe what the poster is experiencing, or has experienced, is a situation where non-autistic people set up groups to discuss autism that propose that they include autistic people. But in the end, the format of those groups make autistic people uncomfortable or difficult to join in on an equal level, and so they become non-autistic exclusive groups. We've seen professionals attempting to create groups for autistic people, and my experience has always been that when they're led by non-autistic people, they are of very little value for me. It's only the autistic groups led by autistic people, involving autistic people, that make sense to me. But I'm sure those other people have to have their meetings somewhere.
The reason I'm interested in this post is something I've said before, and it is that I'm, since my diagnosis for a year and a bit, I've been on a waiting list to go to a group. It'll happen one time and one time only, and it will be with other late diagnosed autistic people in the Toronto area, put on by the hospital where my diagnosis was made. At the same time, someone at the hospital asked me if I would be willing to go to a group put on by that hospital for parents who have just learned that their child has been diagnosed. And the last time we talked about it, we talked about the good. The good would be that they could meet a person who lived their life in many ways successfully. That one's a double whammy because it's organized by non-autistic people and it's for non-autistic people. And I'm sure I have quite a while before my number comes up to go, but I feel concerned about it.
Teresa, does your post-diagnosis group have any kind of online facility for you to communicate?
Nothing. There are some that are expensive, but I think they're just a pipeline for, like they say, to come to it. But I think it's, for a business or a psychologist or something who specializes in autistic people. So it seems just a gateway to become a paid client.
The next post is from Diversity Doodles, which is a personal blog. Doodles that, with your help, aim to spread messages about neurodiversity that I'd like the world to understand. Thank you for help making it happen. And they've shared the following. The opposite of exclusion isn't inclusion if inclusion doesn't also mean belonging. It's not about trying to stop people feeling different. It is about teaching how those differences also belong.
I'm not sure if this post is referring to formalized larger groups, but I've already said this before, but my sister wanted me to be part of her very large wedding party, and it was an extremely social situation. And she made these accommodations way back at the time that she was, we were in our 20s. She's doing this purely on instinct. But I think I told you that there were 2 limousines full of the people in the wedding party. I think her wedding party was, the photograph made it look like we were in an orchestra. But I was put in the front to sit with the limousine driver quietly because it was going to be too raucous for me in the back. And at the time, I think I wondered why this was happening, and now I think it was a kindness and a way of including me in something that would have been just too much.
Following up information on that post, it says, the opposite of exclusion isn't simply inviting someone to join in or take part. It is creating conditions which allow them to do so. The opposite of exclusion isn't simply inviting someone to join or take part if they have to hide who they are in order to be able to. The opposite of exclusion isn't inclusion if inclusion is only tolerance. Inclusion is often just imagined as the opposite of exclusion. You've been invited. You are allowed to join in. So why aren't you here? Inclusion is too often imagined as creating conditions so that differences aren't noticed or cannot be easily identified, and that's celebrated as a win. But I wish this was seen in a different light. Inclusion is not the opposite of exclusion under these circumstances. Inclusion is not about adapting simply so that differences are unrecognisable. Inclusion is only the opposite of exclusion if it fosters a sense of true, authentic belonging. Inclusion isn't about erasing differences, nor teaching those who are different to fit in and adapt. It's about teaching that differences are inherent to everyone, some more divergent than others, and that they are equally valid. Inclusion isn't about trying to stop people feeling different, but teaching how those differences belong, how they are equally valuable, equally visible, easily accepted and welcomed.
Yeah, you don't have to include me. I'll include you.
The next post is from Robbie Prosser, and he shared the following. While some people will claim that all autistic people have a deficit in social skills, I would disagree. I consider that I have different social skills. Unlike some autistic people, I don't like being on my own. I struggle when I face long periods of time without seeing or speaking to anyone. Some social environment I struggle in, but others I thrive in. The things that make the difference: having common interests with other people. Many of the official support service are built around remits of age groups, diagnosis and gender. This is usually why they fail for me. I often cannot find a common ground to build a meaningful relationship. Often in this environment, I face accusations of not trying hard enough. Even if I was asked anyone in the room that what they were interested in, if I don't find common ground, I will struggle. While some people can effectively mask their autistic traits, there are some of my autistic traits I have never been able to mask. I can't pretend to be happy. I can't hide when I am bored. If I'm bored, my mind will just wander. I will feel uncomfortable and I will end up leaving. Much of the year after leaving school, I went to college. I always enjoyed learning languages, and I used to enjoy making pottery. The reason I stopped was when it became too expensive. I studied German, French and Italian. In my mid-20s, I took up to play guitar. I first started at Wisbech Folk Club about 2009, and I started attending open mics. At first, I went to local open mics in Wisbech, St Mary and Otwell with my parents. After my father's death, I bought myself a traveller guitar so I could continue playing guitar at open mics. I now travel around open mic and music jams around Cambridgeshire, Norfolk and Suffolk. Not long after I moved, I joined a choir, Sing Out Cambridge. After I lost Dad, I realised I might not have a garden after I moved, so I joined an archery club. Although I've had an injury, I'm hoping to rejoin the club. I have also started crochet. Even before I moved, I travelled to a craft group in Cambridge. I later started to go to another craft group and a walking group. I regularly take part in open mics, music jams and acoustic sessions. Not bad for someone who is supposed to have a deficit in social skills.
It's the opposite of the stereotypes that go with autism. This person is reaching out, getting out there and entertaining people. It's a lovely thing. We should look at these strengths and just say, yes, autistic people have strengths.
I think what it demonstrates strongly, to put it bluntly, that autistic people have a life. They can do things, they can go places, they can learn skills, they can socialise when comfortable. Although when you think about it, everybody socialises when comfortable, surely, or at least they prefer to. It's something positive that has to be shared again, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about and share, in fairness, because of what's out there, is the sort of negative side of autism. Not just because of autism being misunderstood, but the people who are autistic feel that their lives aren't as great as it should be. It feels limited. They feel they can't do anything, or certainly very limited in what they can do, because either being told that or it's just lack of confidence. So I like sharing stuff like this because it's so inspirational. And even though that's not the sort of thing that I do, music, but it's very inspirational to me that this can be done, and it's very heartwarming.
The point Robbie makes there really clearly is that autistic people are social. They're social in the situations that suit them. They're a musician. They are sociable with the other musicians. They're social with the audience, and they're out there. And the other thing it illustrates is that this person has had a huge change in their lives, but they haven't just sat down and let it all happen to them. They've gone out there and looked for things. They've adapted. They've found a travelling guitar that they can stick on their back and stick on a motorbike to go to gigs. We are out there. We're doing things. I take my hat off to Robbie.
And so do I. And at the same time, wherever Robbie needs support, none of this sociability should take away for his deservedness of the support that he requires.
The next post is from Rachel Dorsey, Autistic SLP LLC, a consulting agency, an autistic speech-language pathologist, she, her. And what she's shared is the following in a presentation. I've grown restless and bored with current autism discourse in the field of speech-language pathology. It is clear that my field's understanding of autism only deepens when a solidly level 2 autistic professional lays it out clearly. So, I'll be that autistic, take one for the team, and sit with the discomfort and pride of speaking on behalf of my autistic clients. The brain-body disconnect the non-speakers repeatedly speak to is real. Not only that, but it has fallout all across the autism spectrum through all domains. Yes, oral speech, but also social pragmatic, socio-emotional, and cognitive linguistic. I have the clear personal examples, and I finally know how to describe them in language accessible to SLPs. Given all I know, I deeply fear what might happen to a generation of autistic kids if the field of SLP continues to not take the brain-body disconnect seriously. With that being said, for all the fear I have more excitement for the potential of generations of autistic kids if the field of SLP does shift towards taking it seriously. You think I'm exceptional? You haven't seen anything yet. These kids are wild in the best of ways. Speech-language pathology could use some good right now. Autism especially could use some good right now. If we pull this off, if the recognition and gradients of the brain-body disconnect are taken seriously, it would be the biggest comeback the field has had in decades. And everybody loves a good comeback.
What is this brain-body disconnect?
A speech-language pathologist, an SLP, encounters a brain-body disconnect, in inverted commas, when they perceive a disruption in the brain's ability to send the correct signals to the muscles involved in speech, a condition most notably described as apraxia of speech. So, in layman's terms, it's a disconnect between our brains forming words and then our body being able to vocalize those words through the function of our muscles and organs. So the premise is that it's being ignored, that some of us cannot vocalize in certain circumstances or possibly at all, because it is theorized that there is no connection from the brain that tries to create the language to the body that tries to then form it and make it voluble.
Thanks, Jules. That makes sense. It's a disconnect between brain and body in reference to speech. It's just my initial reaction is, are the brain and body ever disconnected? But in these cases, they are, not physically, but in some communication capacity.
I think what you said there is important, not physically. So it's a metaphor, the disconnect. We can't just take this literally and say that somebody's brain isn't wired to their mouth. But what we can say is that the pathways from the brain don't necessarily match up in the best possible way for us to be able to control those parts of our body. We come across dyspraxia where people are falling over their feet, don't we? Is it dyspraxia or is it apraxia? There's lots of axias, aren't there?
Yeah, I think that's dyspraxia. And of course there's dyslexia. I'm just curious about other diversions or divergences in modes of communication in respect to this.
It's the speaking thing again, isn't it? is that if you don't speak at all, or if you speak in a certain way, like you speak slowly or slower, for whatever reason, it's like you're not taken as seriously as you should be. It's this sort of prejudice, this sort of assumption, and that's what I'm getting from this, is that that's still out there, as we will be aware of.
This might be on the periphery of this topic, but I think there's such a wide variety of speech differences, things that might be an issue, might not be an issue with autistic children and even adults. And I did a quick search, and there's this, I don't know if it's a stereotype, that some autistic boys and men have very high-pitched voices, and that some autistic women and girls have lower than regular pitched voices, or some of us have monotone voices. But I did a search, and speech language pathologists often try to change the pitch of the autistic child's voice. I don't know any adults in it, and I haven't decided on what I think about it, but I think my voice is lower now than it was, even as an adult who owned a home and answered the phone back when you had a home phone and telemarketers were calling at dinner time. They would ask if my parents were home, and I would say, much to the delight of my children, "Oh no, my parents aren't home right now." Goodbye. But I wonder, because I worry about it every day, I do think I was not taken seriously a lot, or underestimated a lot. I know it's coming out of the blue, but I don't know what I would do if I had a child with a high-pitched voice. I don't know if it's part of this thing that you want to fix or not.
I was just going to say, it's curious though, certain politicians were trained to lower their voices, especially women like Margaret Thatcher and even Nicola Sturgeon, former Scottish First Minister. I always noted that I used to go high-pitched when I was very excited, almost to the point of losing consciousness, like I wasn't breathing correctly. And I can see it in a lot of Scottish people when they get quite animated, creative Scots. They really do go up in the register.
When I worked at the newspaper and had increasingly senior roles, I was trained within an inch of my life. Like, it was humiliating, the amount of voice coaching that I received there.
If we think about voices in society, a conventional range and a conventional way of speaking, expressing, the sing-song, the way of moving from one pitch to another is part of a social conditioning, a social belonging that to some degree we all learn. But I agree that often autistic people are outside those parameters. They might be much lower in one range and in other circumstances use very high ranges. So instead of limiting themselves to a middle range with little variation, they might go all the way from one side to the other. And here's what we have to wonder. Is it us that needs to conform and change, or is it the society around us that needs to accept a large range of difference? In most situations that we have, if we do not fit ourselves to what is expected around us, we end up being the loser. We mask. We work out different ways of finding how to be acceptable. We train ourselves. It's a hard one, If it really is the nub of what we're dealing with autism, are we supposed to accept our nature and what's natural to us and run with that, which might in certain circumstances make us unacceptable and disable us and put us at disadvantage? Or are we to mask up and bend ourselves to the society around us? And this is a negotiation all human beings have to make. But for us, it's a bigger set of adjustments.
Yeah, it's like living in two worlds or multiple worlds. One of the first things I heard when post-diagnosis online was this, I think it was Pete Warnby who said that he felt like he didn't speak the same language as everyone else. It's like when you go to a foreign country and don't know the language. You're there, you're existing, you're doing things with people, but you're not communicating in the same language. So you have to find other ways of being with people.
The next post is from the Autistic Teacher. Public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community based in the UK. And what they've shared is a presentation called Dancing with Sun Fairies, Visual Stimming. As a child, I spent endless hours memorised by the world around me, captivated by what some might call little things. I remember sitting by a sunlit window, watching specks of dust dance in the light. I called them sun fairies, and reached out as if to touch their magic. To an outside observer, perhaps this looked odd or detached, but to me, it was a vivid world of wonder, a space where I felt connected and at peace. This experience is what many know as visual stimming. For those of us who are autistic, stimming, short for self-stimulatory behaviour, can encompass various sensory experiences that help us regulate our emotions and feel more at ease. Visual stimming, specifically, involves engaging deeply with a visual stimuli, whether it's watching dust float in sunbeams, staring into a kaleidoscope, or being captured by fluid movements of water. These visual experiences bring a soothing sense of calm and order to a sometimes overwhelming world. Number 1. Hand flapping. Rapid movement of hands in front of the face or at the sides, creating a blur of motion. 2. Spinning objects. Watching the continuous motion of objects like spinning tops, fans or wheels can be memorising. Colour patterns. Number 3. Colour patterns. Enjoying or staring at colourful patterns such as kaleidoscopes, rainbows or even vibrant screensavers. Number 4. Shiny objects. Observing reflections or lights bouncing off shiny surfaces like mirrors, metal or water. Number 5. Light patterns. Watching lights flickering such as holiday lights, fireworks or sunlight filtering through leaves. Number 6. Repetitive movements. Repeatedly watching activities like a pendulum swinging or windshield wipers moving back and forth. Number 7. Water. Gaze fixating on flowing water, waves, or the ripples on a pond with a calming visual effect. Number 8. Drawing or doodling. Creating or looking at repetitive designs or mandalas. Number 9. Screensavers or animations. Enjoying looped animations that have smooth, flowing movements. Number 10. Visual tracking. Engaging in tracking moving objects like bubbles floating or birds flying. For many autistic individuals, the world is a sensory symphony, sometimes harmonious, sometimes overwhelming. Visual stimming acts as both anchor and escape. By focusing on specific, consistent visual patterns or movements, we can tune out chaotic sensory input and regain a sense of control and comfort. These visual engagements help regulate emotions, reduce anxiety, and even enhance concentration. The beauty of visual stimming lies in its simplicity and accessibility. It's not about spacing out or being unresponsive. It's about deeply engaging with a sensory experience that brings profound joy and peace. So the next time you see someone staring intently at rainbows, rippling water, or even dust in a sunbeam, know that they might be immersing themselves in a world that's rich and meaningful. They are not just watching. Their souls are dancing with sun fairies, just like mine did, and still do today. Understanding these perspectives is key to embracing neurodiversity. Each stim holds the promise of sanity, one visual delight at a time. What's your thoughts?
Amen. I'm staring at a Ziploc bag filled with water hanging from an invisible string on a hook in the ceiling, and above it, there's a little fairy. I put them there. Still, I'm not shy about this whole thing.
I remember driving my friend home once in my car and went off on one with a scintilla of dust floating in the sunlight in my windscreen, and he said, "Mate, pay attention to the road. We don't want to crash here. You going off on your little rabbit hole here."
I'm fortunate to live near a small, beautiful little river, and I often walk along, stand on the bridge, and stare into the depths and watch the repetitiveness of the water. And it doesn't just take me away, it completely fills me. And it's a lovely thing to do when you need to meditate, to de-stress, use your strength by finding these visual stims.
It's kind of like letting go. And also, I was thinking, whenever I hear these things, I love these things, but also preface it with not everyone goes this route. Some people work in another way with things. Maybe similar ways, but not quite. There's an artistic feel to this, a creative thing, that a certain response in certain people. And so it may not be universal, and the poster said that many in the autistic community do this. But it is that kind of letting go and disengaging.
I feel like it's the stimming that's left to you when you can't necessarily stim. Number one is hand flapping, though, and probably if you were masking, you wouldn't do it. But I have started alone at home to do physical stimming again. But I think a lot of the items on the list are ways you can stim unnoticed.
Yeah, number one is physical as well. I sometimes find when I'm being quite expressive verbally or mentally even, I want to get up and dance almost, and I noticed this in some of Josie's presentations, and it's in with a lot of autistic people, this discomfort in having to sit still somewhere, So to get up and move around is to enact, to act out what you're expressing.
I used to, and I talked with my sister about this on Friday night, I used to spin a lot, just spin myself around. And then I had one that other people I needed adults for. I loved them to hang me upside down by my ankles.
Oh no, hanging by the ankles, that was like torture when I was a kid. It was good to see the pendulum there. My grandfather used to mend watches, and he had a big grandfather clock, and one of my very early memories is fascination with this pendulum swinging.
Thanks, everyone. It was a great conversation. It was very varied, very intense at times, but very beautiful there. So thanks a lot for that. And of course, thanks to the people that have shared these posts that we've talked about tonight. These are the ones that bring the conversation, or at least it gives us something to start the conversation on. So many thanks. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 5th of October 2025, which is part of the Spectrum Voices Conversations, which is here every Sunday, 5:55 PM to 7:30 PM, every Sunday UK time. So look forward to doing it next time. And now I'll hand over to Jules.
Thanks, Harry. I rely on this 555, and it's lovely to have you sharing these posts and creating these conversations for us. Now it's time for us to consider, in an open meeting, Autistic Radio and Autistic Association, the charity that we have for ourselves. This week, there's just one thing to talk about, and in some ways it is quite important. We have experienced a rather beautiful decision-making process. We had to make a decision about one of our contributors. They made a lovely podcast with us. They said interesting things. They taught us stuff, but they didn't feel quite prepared to have the episode published. And that's within their own choice. When we make edits with people, we give people the option, once the edit has been made, to then decide whether they should continue and accept the edits, or if they want some changes. If we don't edit the person at all, then they have already given permission when we record. We're not taking them out of context, and we're not changing what they say. They're in entire control during the process of what they say. So when this person contacted us to say that they didn't want to have their episode published, we had to make a decision. So we put it out to the group. I asked for help, and it was really lovely for me. A beautiful process of people thinking really carefully about the situation, coming back with different versions of advice, and that makes me feel as though we're getting things right here. Having a group of people making the decision and informing what we do is so much more valuable than a group led by somebody. And maybe that's the autistic way. Maybe we can work in a more cooperative way if we are producing our own organisation without the hierarchy. So, thank you, everybody. I really appreciated the support, the intelligence, and the thoughtfulness of you all.
Spectrum Voices Conversation is an Autistic Association production for autisticradio.com. If you have something to share with us, if you need a voice, you can make different kinds of programs with us. You can make a 10-minute short, or you can join us for a podcast to talk about a subject that is dear to your heart or something you think needs a wider audience. We have an open door policy for divergent views. We do not necessarily agree with everything that we share on our Facebook pages or the words expressed in our podcast. There are a lot of different divergent views which we are trying to allow get aired so that people can see things from different people's vantage points. We hope that you will join that conversation. Contact us through any of our links, Facebook, by email, directly to us.